back to the operation management class. Today we will discuss a lot about the definition and techniques in product development. Let's see in details. Talking about service. The service is kind like another coin side of the product. This is challenging since the service has the unique characteristic. Service industry like banking, finance, insurance, transportation, and communication. The service design is a method, in this case, for designing the experience that can reach the customer through many different touch points. So let's discuss about the service design in this video. As we mentioned before, that the service design is a one way for designing the experience. We emphasize in here designing the experience that can reach the customer through many different meeting or touch points. The service, in this case, this is the unique characteristic of service. They are produced at the same time when they are consumed. This is different with the product, where the product is produced not at the same time, but with the different time. The customer, for sure, this is the co-creator of the service. And lastly, we can say that every product is also contain a service waiting to happen. There are three parts of services. The first part is, we call it the core service or the basic outcome. The core service delivers the basic outcome desired by one or more customer. They, in here, represent the value that the customer wants and for which they are willing to pay. This service anchors the value proposition for the customer and provide the basis for their continued utilization and also satisfaction. The second part of the service, we call it the enabling service. Enabling service are services that are needed in order for the core service to be delivered. This service may or may not be visible to the customer, but the customer doesn't perceive them as service in their own right. They are basic factors which enable the customer to receive the real or core services. The third part is enhancing services. This is the services that are added to a core service to make it more exciting, more enticing to the customer. Enhancing services are not essential to the delivery of the core service and are added to core service as an excitement factor. When we turn on the water tap, we expect to see the water flow from it. When we turn on the light switch, we expect to see the light fill out the room. There was time when these very basic things were not as reliable as they are today. We know instinctively that the advance in technology has made them reliable enough to be considered as an utility. But this is not just the technology that makes them service reliable, it is how they manage the service. Customers participate in several touch points. For example, as illustrated in the A section in this figure, customers participate in the design of the service itself. So they discuss with the designer, and after that, for example, determine the color, the shape, and so on, and then go to the designer, continue to the delivery of the service itself. For example, we discuss with the doctor for the cosmetic surgery. For example, we want this and that, and then, okay, we'll agree together, and then the service will be delivered. And then customer participation can also during the delivery of the service, not at the design. For example, the gym in here, when we go for sport, the design of this product is already determined, but how to use this particular product, so we need to closely participate with the customer, what the customer want, and which kind of exercise that they need. The the trainer should explain and discuss a lot with the customer. The customer participation can also in both design and delivery. For example, in counseling, in the college education, when we design this one, yeah, when we design the college education, for example, we need to talk with the stakeholder, we need to talk with the expected student, and so on. And when we deliver this one, when we deliver the education, and then we again measure the performance. The characteristic of this service design thinking is the first is user-centered, which means we use the qualitative research to design and focusing to all the users. So we focus to the user. The second is we call it the co-creative. Co-creative means we should include all relevant stakeholders in the design process. Sequencing, meaning that we should break the complex service into separate process. And user journey section. So we execute this complex service with the separate process. Evidencing, it means efficient the service experience to make them tangible for the user to understand and trust for the company's brand. Lastly, this is the holistic approach. The service encounter the actor, which is the, for example, the employee that deliver the service. In this case, associate, it's mean in here like a support. Associate in this case is other organization that involved in providing the service, for example, the logistic, the cleaner, and so on. And location, yeah, so service also encounter location, where the location is, whether this is the location where the customer will receive the service, whether this is virtual or the physical location. And process, this is the workflow that used to deliver the service, the step by step, how we can deliver the service. And props, this is the object that used during the service delivery, or this property, we can say it like that. Service design tool. There are several service design tools such as customer journey map, persona, and service blueprinting. Customer journey map is a visual representation of a customer journey, or we can say it also the buyer journey or the user journey. It helps the customer, it helps the company tell the story of the customer experience with the brand across all touch points. A persona, the second is we call it the persona. Persona is to help envision the target user. The persona is essentially a fictional representation of user in our services, typically developed based on design research such as interview, surveys, and other insight. The last one is the service blueprinting. Service blueprinting is simply a diagram that visualizes the relationship between different service components, people, property, process that are directly tied to the touch point in specific customer journey. Think of the service blueprint as part to customer journey map. This figure illustrate the emotional journey of creating anything great. Either this is product or this is service. When we find out at the first time, we have an idea, we are convinced ourselves that this is the best idea ever. And then when we passing through, and then we still convinced, we still feel that this is will be fun. And when we try further to create and design that one, we suddenly feel this is harder than we thought. This is going to be a lot of work, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And then we come up to the states, we call it the dark swamp of despair. This is actually test our belief and persistence. And then when we can pass through this dark swamp of despair, and then we sometimes we said this is, oh, it's okay, but still there is some problem there. And then we have an idea, and then we said this is, let's call it a day, and we learn something, and then okay, then we finally come up with the accomplishment. Then we say, wow, this is what we can do. So this is the emotional journey of creating the product or services that is great. So thank you so much for joining me in this video about the service design. See you again in the next video. Thank you so much for joining me in Learning Operation Management. See you again in the next video.